Hi again, friends. Let's switch now from the competency side of the equation to the motivation side of the equation. You'll remember my little formula here of competency times motivation equals performance, which is pretty right. I mean, there are other factors, but this is a nice simple way of thinking about what results in human performance on your team or in your organization. The subject of motivation, and I'm sure you've thought about this, I'm sure you've thought about it in terms of your own motivation from time to time, and you've probably thought about it in terms of the motivation of others around you or your team members. There have been hundreds of books written on this subject of motivation. I've written a few of them. And there are numerous theories of motivation, some named after the name of some professor who came up with an interesting construct. I'm going to give you a simple model. It's not a dumb model, it's a smart model, but it's simple. And what I've attempted to do in this model is integrate or unify different theories of motivation with a particular eye towards thinking about what you can actually do as a manager. You know, there's some theories of motivation that go into psychological states and, even genetics, which you can't do anything about. So it's kind of none of your business. You don't have to worry about it. Just put that out of your mind. You as a manager have to think about how do I affect the motivation of those around me and those under me, my employees. So this model addresses things that you can do something about, which is your job. And your job, there are theories of motivation that say, well, money doesn't matter. People don't care about money. They just care about self-esteem or something else. Look, don't worry about that. For you, it's not important. What your job is to maximize all the potential sources of motivation that can impact your people. So, human beings are different. We're diverse and we're unique, and depending upon how we were raised and what our interests are, some people are very interested in money and moving up the ladder. Others are more interested in family time. There are lots of different interests that people have. So you can't, you're not smart enough, and neither am I, to say, well, I'm going to do this for this person, and I'm going to do that for that person, I'm going to do this for this person, because you have to deal with them differently. No, you don't. What you have to do is you have to optimize all the potential sources of motivation for your team members. And if you're doing that, some people will respond to some things and others will respond to other things, and you'll be doing your job. Now, here's my little model. I'll call it a hierarchy of motivation. And I think you can, if you think about your own life, I think you can see this and understand it. And in the following lectures, I'll go into more depth into each of these areas. But one way of thinking about motivation is to think about this pyramid, where at the top of the pyramid, we have a spiritual nature. We have a search for meaning in our life, a search for purpose in our life. And that's the big deal for human beings, for the human condition. It's why we seek out religions, and why all religions all over the world give purpose and meaning to their followers. And people follow them precisely for that reason, because they need meaning and purpose in their life. And we don't have to say, well, one religion is better than another, or right or wrong, or any of that. None of that matters. I'm just sort of stating a sociological fact that religion and purpose, and that purpose may be country, it may be family, it may be community, in addition to religion. But we seek that meaning. Now, is there meaning at work? Is there purposefulness at work? And I would say, of course there is, which doesn't mean it's, quote, religious, but we find ways of finding meaning in our work. I find meaning in my work. I hope you find meaning in your work. So I'll call this sort of the spiritual realm, or the realm of purpose. You can think of that as the higher level of motivation. Then there's how we interact with other people. There's community, there's teams, there's families, there's social bonding. And it is our nature, it is in the human genetic code, if you will, in the human nature, to be motivated by being part of a group. You know, when I worked in prisons, people would say there's a gang problem. And I tell them, no, there's not a gang problem. Gangs are the solution to the problem. You know what the real problem is? You show me a community where the family unit is healthy and strong, I'll show you a community that does not have a gang problem. Show me a community where family units are in disintegration, where there is no safety for the young person in the family. And what do they seek? They seek a group, right? And that group is in the inner city and other places, and it happens all around the world, by the way. That's the gang. That's the group that's meeting the psychological need of bonding. Well, in the workplace, and I'm going to talk a lot about teams as we go through the course, but we like to work in groups, we like to work in teams, and I'll come back and talk about that. But that's the social dimension of motivation, and it's a major driver in our workplace. Then there's what I'll call situational motivation. And that's our immediate environment. That's the consequences to our behavior. That's the prompts, the stoplight, the sign that says safety. Wear a safety hat, you know, wear a hard hat, or wear safety gloves, or wear safety glasses, or, you know, we see these things in our work environment that, like the red light, the traffic light, the stop sign, they're meant to be cues, prompts, to stimulate a certain behavior, right? And then there are consequences to behavior. And we'll talk more about that in some depth. But those are things that we do manage. You know, we manage the social more than we manage the spiritual, although we do have an effect on that. And even more so, we manage the situational impact on motivation. So we're going to talk about how to do that. And you can think of that as sort of going from the material to the spiritual. And by, you know, saying that's material, I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just more immediate. It's more the immediate consequences to our behavior. So we're going to go through that model in the following lectures, and I hope you can see things, I'm sure you can see things that you will be able to do to maximize the motivation of your people. Thanks.